All right, let's dive into some serious financial intelligence today. We're tackling this 30-day challenge guide from Mental Wellness TV. And full disclosure, it's a bit of a beast, but don't worry.
Yeah.
We're all about extracting those golden nuggets, those actionable takeaways to really make a difference. And not in a month. I'm talking starting today.
Yeah, it's like we're brewing this super potent financial espresso, taking this massive library of information and condensing it into a quick shot of knowledge designed to get you moving.
Love that analogy. And speaking of moving, this guide kicks off strong. Day one is all about uncovering your financial why. And not just like a vague, I wish I were rich kind of thing, but really digging deep and defining what financial freedom actually means to you.
Right, like what would truly change in your life?
Yeah, like what are those dreams you'd chase, the impact you'd make?
Exactly. And it's fascinating how they tie this why to tangible goals. They actually encourage you to set specific targets. Think 6 months, 12 months, even 2 years down the line.
Oh, I'm all about a good roadmap.
Yeah, it's like plotting those coordinates on your financial map. Gives you direction and keeps you motivated on the journey.
Makes sense, but I can also see how goal setting can feel overwhelming, especially if you're not even sure where to start.
That's true, but the guide addresses that too. They suggest starting small. Like, what's
Yeah.
one thing, just one thing you could do this week to move you closer to that why of yours?
Okay, I like that.
Could be researching a new skill, setting up a budget tracker, or even just talking about money with someone you trust. The key is to just take action, even if it feels small at first.
Okay, feeling inspired. But let's be real. Taking action often needs resources. And those resources often come down to, well, money. So how does this challenge approach the often scary topic of budgeting?
Day two, they jump right in. And you know what surprised me? It's not all complicated spreadsheets and formulas. They have this surprisingly simple budgeting trick. Categorize your spending needs versus wants, then challenge yourself to trim those want expenses even just by 10%.
10%. Okay, that feels doable. I like that it's not about deprivation, it's more like making conscious choices. But what about those of us battling the dead monster? I mean, how can you even think about saving or investing when you're drowning in payments?
Day three, debt management. This is where it gets really interesting. They talk about prioritizing those high interest debts first. Think credit cards, payday loans, and tackling those aggressively. And it's not just about the financial benefit, they also highlight the psychological relief you feel as you start chipping away at that burden.
Oh yeah, I can imagine that feeling of lightness, like you're finally in control. But how do you even know where you stand financially to even create a debt payoff plan? Are they suggesting we dig through piles of old bank statements?
Well, that leads us to day four. They guide you through a complete financial self-assessment. And yeah, it involves gathering those statements and getting honest with yourself about your income, expenses, savings, debts. But they emphasize it's a judgment-free zone. Just a clear-eyed look at where you are so you can plan for where you want to be.
Okay, honesty time. I'm actually pretty good at tracking my spending. I use an app that categorizes everything automatically. Is that the kind of tool they recommend?
Definitely. Apps, spreadsheets, whatever works for you. The key takeaway from day five, where they dive into spending analysis, is awareness. It's about pinpointing those sneaky areas where money might be vanishing without you even realizing it.
Oh, like those daily lattes? That turn into a small fortune by month's end. Guilty as charged. But here's something that piqued my curiosity. They keep mentioning this prosperity mindset. What does that even mean? Is it just positive thinking with a financial spin?
It's deeper than that. It's about understanding that our beliefs and behaviors around money actually shape our financial reality. Like that saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Interesting.
A prosperity mindset focuses on solutions, not limitations. So instead of saying, I can't afford that, you ask, how can I make that happen?
Yes. So it's about shifting from scarcity to possibility.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But mindset alone can't magically create wealth, right?
Yeah.
We still need to know how to actually manage and grow our money.
Absolutely. And that brings us perfectly to day seven, where they dip their toes into the sometimes intimidating world of investing.
Okay, this is where I get a little nervous. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, it all feels so complicated.
They break it down really well, starting with the basics. Stocks, representing ownership in a company, and bonds, essentially loans you make to governments or corporations.
So with stocks, you're betting on the company's success.
Right.
And with bonds, you're getting a fixed return over time.
That's a great way to simplify it. They also touch on real estate as an investment option. The key takeaway here is investing isn't just for the super rich. You can start small, build your knowledge gradually, and most importantly, align your investments with your personal risk tolerance.
That's reassuring. I like the idea of starting small and learning as I go. But even starting small requires some capital, right?
Yeah.
How do they bridge that gap between wanting to invest and having the money to do it?
That's where those earlier lessons really come into play. If you've got a solid budget, you're managing your debt, and you've even slightly reduced those want expenses, you might be surprised how quickly you can free up some funds to start investing, even if it's just a small amount each month.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. It's like building a financial foundation, brick by brick.
Hmm.
But I'm curious, what are some of those more advanced strategies they cover in the later days of the challenge?
Well, one that really stood out to me is this pay yourself first approach on day 12. Imagine every time you get paid, a percentage automatically goes into a separate savings or investment account before you even have a chance to spend it.
Ooh, I like that. Takes the willpower out of the equation.
Right, out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly.
It's like you're building this financial safety net without even thinking about it. And then on day 14, they get into something I think a lot of people, especially beginners, they tend to overlook: managing
Oh,
risks.
you mean like having an emergency fund
Yes.
for those life happens moments.
Exactly. It's about anticipating those potential challenges and having strategies to deal with them because, unexpected expenses happen, markets fluctuate,
Yeah, for sure.
and sometimes, well, life just throws you a curveball.
Speaking of curveballs, I remember them touching on something. The importance of understanding the financial system as a whole. Back on day 11. What's the takeaway there?
It's about recognizing that your personal finances, they don't exist in isolation. Interest rates, inflation, global events, they all play a role.
Oh, I see.
It's like understanding the currents of the ocean before you set sail.
Okay, that's a great analogy. So it's not just about managing your own little boat. It's about navigating those larger economic waters.
Precisely. And to navigate effectively, you need a map. Which brings us to day 20, building a long-term financial plan.
So we're not just talking about surviving today, but thriving in the future. But does that mean sticking to some rigid plan, even when things inevitably change?
That's where flexibility comes in. They emphasize breaking down those big goals into smaller steps and being willing to adjust your plan as you go. Life rarely goes exactly as planned. So your financial roadmap, it needs to be adaptable.
Okay, I like that. It's like you've got your compass, but you're open to exploring different paths along the way. But isn't all this focus on numbers and strategies kind of missing something?
Mm.
What about the human side of money?
You're right, and that's something this challenge does really well. It incorporates those more nuanced aspects of financial well-being,
Right.
like the connection between money and happiness, which they explore on day 27.
Now, that's something I'm interested in. Because let's be honest, we all want to be happy. But can money actually buy happiness?
It's not that simple, of course, but what they emphasize is that feeling of financial security. It can reduce stress. It can open up doors to pursuing your passions,
Right.
which can lead to a more fulfilling life.
So it's not about the money itself,
Hmm.
but the freedom and opportunities it can provide.
Exactly. And that freedom often comes from having a healthy relationship with money, which brings us back to the importance of mindset, those internal shifts we were talking about.
Right. Remember day 6.
Yeah.
Cultivating that prosperity mindset,
Mhm.
believing in your ability to reach those financial goals, and approaching challenges with a solutions-oriented approach.
Exactly. And that ties in beautifully with day 19, where they encourage listeners to invest in themselves, taking courses, learning new skills, even just prioritizing self-care, recognizing that you are your most valuable asset.
I love that. It's not just about managing money, it's about investing in yourself. And it seems like they continue this theme of expanding your horizons on day 25 when they talk about the power of networking.
Absolutely. Recognizing that financial success often involves collaboration. It's about building those relationships with people who can support you, offer advice, maybe even open doors to new opportunities. We're not meant to navigate this financial journey alone.
I like that. So you're saying that your net worth, it's also influenced by your network.
I think so.
But even with the best network in the world, there are bound to be blanks along the way. How does the challenge address those inevitable setbacks?
That's where resilience and adaptability come in. On day 26, they encourage listeners to reassess their goals, to adjust their strategies as needed. Financial planning, it's an ongoing process, not a one-time event.
So it's like, okay, you've come this far, now let's take stock, celebrate those wins, and course correct as needed.
Exactly.
Like that. It's not about perfection, it's about progress and continuous improvement.
Precisely. And speaking of celebrating wins, Day 29 encourages listeners to acknowledge how far they've come. Recognize those small victories along the way. Appreciate the effort and dedication they've put in.
Yeah, we all need a little pat on the back sometimes, especially when we're tackling something as challenging as personal finance.
Absolutely. And then on day 30, they wrap things up with a note of celebration, encouraging listeners to reward themselves for completing the challenge and to embrace the journey ahead with confidence and enthusiasm.
A nice way to end things. It's like they're sending you off with a sense of accomplishment and a renewed sense of possibility. But even though the challenge officially ends after 30 days, the learning doesn't have to stop there, right?
Exactly. One of the key takeaways from this whole program is that financial intelligence is a lifelong pursuit. It's about constantly learning, adapting, and evolving your relationship with money.
And it's a journey worth taking. Like we discussed on day 27, financial freedom isn't just about having more money. It's about having more choices, more opportunities, and ultimately more freedom to live a life that aligns with your values.
I think that's beautifully said. And it leads me to a question for our listeners. Think back to the beginning of this deep dive. What stood out to you the most? Was there a particular day or concept that resonated? And more importantly, what action are you inspired to take based on what you've learned?
That's a great question. Because knowledge is only powerful when it's applied. It's not enough to just listen to this deep dive. It's about actually taking action, even if it's just a small step.
You know, it's funny, as we've been talking about all this, there's something that wasn't explicitly mentioned in this challenge, but it's been kind of swirling in my mind throughout our whole conversation.
I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
Okay, so remember how the challenge emphasizes understanding the financial system as a whole, not just managing your own personal finances, but getting a grasp on those larger forces at play.
Right, right. Like interest rates, inflation, global events, seeing those interconnected currents, so to speak.
Exactly. And what if I told you that one of the most powerful ways to understand those currents is by understanding their source, by delving into financial history?
Okay, now you've really piqued my curiosity. How does history fit into all of this?
Well, think about it. The financial system we have today, it didn't just magically appear overnight. It's the result of centuries of evolution, innovation, and sometimes even major upheavals. For example, did you know that the first official stock exchange was established way back in the 1600s in Amsterdam?
Wow, I had no idea. So you're saying that understanding the past can help us make more informed decisions in the present and the future.
Exactly. By studying financial history, we can gain insights into how markets function, why certain policies were implemented, and even how past financial crises unfolded. It's like having this financial compass that's been calibrated over centuries of experience.
I love that analogy. So where would someone even begin to explore financial history? Are we talking like dusty old textbooks and archives?
Not necessarily. There are so many accessible resources out there. Books, documentaries, even podcasts, all dedicated to financial history. You could start by looking into the history of banking, the evolution of stock markets, or even delve into the causes of major financial crises, like the Great Depression or the 2008 recession.
That sounds fascinating. Maybe even a topic for a future deep dive.
I'd be all for that, but for now, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. What if the key to unlocking your financial future lies in understanding the financial past?
Ooh, that's a good one. Definitely something to ponder. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from those nitty-gritty day-to-day tactics to those big-picture concepts. Any final thoughts for our listeners before we wrap up this deep dive?
Just remember, financial intelligence isn't just about mastering spreadsheets or memorizing financial terms. It's about cultivating a mindset of growth, curiosity, and resilience. It's about understanding that money is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used to build the life you want.
I love that. It's about taking control of your finances so you can create the life you desire, whether that's pursuing your passions, supporting your family, making a difference in the world, or all of the above.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is, no matter where you are on your financial journey, there's always something new to learn, a new strategy to try, a new goal to set your sights on.
Well said. And if you're feeling inspired to take action after this deep dive, I highly recommend checking out that full 30-day challenge guide from Mental Wellness TV. It's packed with even more insights, tips, and tools to help you take your financial game to the next level.
And remember, even though this deep dive is ending, your journey towards financial well-being is just beginning.
So true. So keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep. Until next time, everyone.